Okay, well, let's take a look at the Squire's tale. You'll remember that the Squire is young and handsome, and he does everything for love. He is a chip off the block of his father. He's gone everywhere his father's done, fought in the battles of his father, and he carves before his father respectfully at the table. And so he tells a story. The genre is courtly romance, and we've only had one other courtly romance. In fact, of all the Canterbury tales, there's only two. There is the Knight's Tale, and there is this tale. So the only pilgrim, as I said, to tell a high-class courtly romance was the knight who crushed it. Now the knight's young son is going to attempt this lofty endeavor. So imagine a 15-year-old that's going to write a Wagner aria, or a Wagner opera, right? Or an epic. So imagine you're on a long weekend camping trip with friends and their 15-year-old son decides to tell you that he wants to spend the next 3 days reading you his poetic epic. So how would you feel about that? Well, you'd want to jam a tent stake through both your ears. So the Squire orates poetry for the next 670 lines, and all he accomplishes in that space is to introduce the characters and the basic scenario. He interrupts his own narrative on several occasions, admitting he doesn't have the eloquence to do the tale justice. Is this humility or awkward storytelling? Different critics are going to have different points of view on this. So the story, once upon a time was a guy named Combus Khan. You've heard of Genghis Khan, Kublai Khan. Well, this is one in that tradition, a Mongolian overlord who's called Combus Khan, so the story goes. He's married to Elfeta, and he has 3 children, Al-Garsif, Kambalo, and Canasi. They are celebrating his anniversary of becoming emperor. After many years, he's an older man. And all of a sudden at this big party, this Crimson Knight appears. And he says he brings gifts to the emperor from a faraway country. Brings gift. He's like an ambassador. And he brings a number of gifts. He brings a ring that does 2 things. You can hear the speech of birds and understand it. I don't know why that would be interesting. You know, if a bird says, I want to eat a worm, you know, I don't know why that would be a thing. But that same ring will also reveal, and a mirror that will reveal whether someone is a friend or a foe. A sword that is so sharp that it's like a lightsaber. Anything it touches, it will cut clean through. And the only way you can heal from such a cut is if you turn the flat side of the sword and touch it, it will immediately heal the cut. And another cool thing is this awesome horse of brass. And it's a metallic horse kind of thing, and you jump on it. It has a pin in its ear. And you command it to where to go, and it will go, I guess, fly. It doesn't say, but it will get you anywhere in the world in 24 hours or less. So, you know, it's like Delta, you know, or United Horse. And you turn the pin in its ear, and wherever you stop, it'll go invisible so someone else won't take it. Now, how you find it again, I don't know. But anyway, so those are the cool things. And the Crimson Knight is clearly attracted to the young Canasi, and they dance late. But then she turns in by herself without sleeping with him, as sensible people ought to, says the Squire. So she doesn't make love to him the first time she sees him. Next morning, she wakes up. She hears someone talking. It's a bird. It's a female bird who was deeply in love with a male bird, and the male bird was seduced away by a slutty female bird, and now she's brokenhearted. So that's the Lady Canasi. talking to the falcon. And at that moment, the story stops mid-sentence. He finishes part 2, and then in part 3, he just says, Apollo in his chariot was so high that the god Mercury, he was in Mercury's house, and he starts to finish his description of the god Mercury, and mid-sentence, the story ends. The big question is why? Why does it end? 2 possibilities. Chaucer intended to finish it, just didn't. Or he decided that the story sucked and he was going to have the Franklin interrupt it. Now, I think it's interesting that later in the Renaissance, Spenser, in the Fairy Queen, I think it's Spenser, finishes the story. And it's a good story. So it's possible to finish the story. Is it Spenser or Sidney? I'm blanking out now. I get old and little details start falling. I used to actually have a decent memory. But now it's a crapper. I forgot my dentures. Anyway, so all of a sudden, the next thing we knew, the Franklin is speaking. He says, in faith, Squire, you've really done a great job, and nobly. I praise your high intelligence. Considering how young you are, you speak with great feeling, sir, from the heart. And according to my judgment, nobody here is going to match you in writing ability, assuming you live a little longer. Now, the implication is maybe he's not there yet. And if so, did Chaucer intend to finish the tale eventually, or did the Franklin interrupt the Squire's tale because it's not ready for prime time? The question arises, if someone was going to interrupt the Squire, who would it be? Well, the Squire's really high in social status. So you'd need someone pretty high in social status to take him down. What about the knight? Well, the knight wouldn't, because it's his son talking, right? So who might do it? Well, the Franklin is pretty high in social status. He's like number 5 or something. And he's exactly the kind of person that would do it, because he's always caring about everyone's social comfort. And he may see that this young man has bit off more than he can chew, and he's going to tell this incredibly long epic, because just before this he says, now I'm going to tell about each of these characters, how this character went off and had these adventures, and how he conquers 3 cities. I want to tell about this character, how he went off in a different direction, and this character, and you can imagine that this thing is going to be longer than the Knight's Tale, or longer than the rest of the Canterbury Tales combined. And right after he describes this at the end of part 2, what he's going to say, then the Franklin interrupts him 3 lines later. Well, two lines later. So, most critics think it's interrupted, some don't. That's for you as a critic to decide. By the way, one time when I was working on my PhD, I was taking a Chaucer class, and the professor said, no one can mount a decent argument that Chaucer intended to finish the story. No one can. And I realized what I was going to write my dissertation, my research paper for that course on. I don't like people telling me I can't, no one can do something. So there we go. I took him on, and I like that. I like it when students take on tough arguments, even if they think they disagree with me. That's awesome. The Franklin then tells the Squire that he wishes his own son was dedicated to Gentilessa. Now that's an important topic. Have we talked about Gentilessa yet? Did we talk about Gentilessa?
I don't think so.
Gentilessa means nobility. And it can mean either, just like the modern word nobility, it can mean either nobility in bloodline, like you are the third, Duke of Hottentot. Or it can be nobility, not about your bloodline, but about your thoughts, your attitudes, and your actions. So if I say, good afternoon, noble Chaucerians, I don't necessarily mean you're descended from British royalty. I may just mean that you are good, honorable people. Does that make sense? So it means kind of both ways. So he really likes the Squire's thesis of gentilessa. So he says that. The host, apparently fed up with gentilessa after the Squire's tale, exclaims, crap on your gentilessa. Straw for your gentilessa. I don't want to hear any gentilessa. Franklin, it's your turn. Now, what's interesting is the Franklin tells a story whose theme is gentilessa, just like the Squire's tale, and the plot is a squire is competing with a knight for the medal of gentilessa.